Good afternoon. It's Dale again, and I will be keeping this fairly short, or trying to, mainly because I've got a little bit of a dry, husky throat, and probably not going to get better the more that I talk. But I thought a sensible topic for today's chat would be the matter of research and the issue of records and the inaccuracy of records which one has to deal with. um, I think this is a very, very important thing to bring out here when one compiles something of the size which I have over this last many years. And unfortunately, the matter of inaccuracies crops up just about everywhere one puts one's finger. So, and I'm not only now talking about the likes of, say, genealogical records, for example, where you would expect some considerable degree of error. Um, Families, when they're recording history of loved ones, often they get tangled up with names, dates and places of birth, um, other records relating to um, the person that they have written about, and sometimes there will be multiple family trees just on one genealogical site, which show lots of variations and sometimes some marked disparities between each tree. So I'm not really talking about that, although that is to be expected. But the matter of inaccuracies is to be found everywhere, literally everywhere, in official documents. And of course, any of you who know of my work over this last 15 years or so will know that the Freedom's Call rolls had their origins in the what were called the nominal rolls, or the embarkation rolls, when our servicemen went overseas in World War II, and when they took off for Japan immediately post-war, or towards the tail end of the war. So I really just wanted to expand a little bit on some of the sorts of things that I found. First of all, let's start with the nominal rolls. The nominal rolls, whether due to the fact that there was incorrect reporting from the outset, possibly due to time constraints, or whether this just arose as a result of transposition. So, for example, if when a person went to enlist, if information was taken down by hand as opposed to perhaps being typewritten, or either, incorrect information was taken. There may have been incorrect spellings, which may have been due to the person giving the information or the person recording it. And indeed, I suspect that in some instances that there may have been false names actually given as well. But there's no absolute proof that that happened, but I suspect it did happen in some instances. So, you know, you're going to find information incorrectly recorded there for a start. So that's your building block. That's where you're starting from, and one needs to actually understand that won't be a perfect fit. And sometimes one will come up with information later on, and it's quite clear just looking at, say, possibly say at a death record, or maybe a cemetery record, where we have, for example, perhaps a service number, a regimental number that is that goes alongside of the person who is recorded, that one finds that the name is quite different. And so that's the first point. So we're looking there. Now, when we come to other official records, such as date of birth, date of death, and date of marriage, Um, as I say, these are indices that I've been working from. And these indices, they're not the original birth record, obviously, because it costs a lot of money to actually undertake a search and obtain a copy of a birth, marriage, or death record. But these are the indices, so the actual recording, if you like, of the fact that such a birth, marriage, or death certificate was issued. And all too often, we're finding um, incorrect names. Incorrect name of the person perhaps who was born, incorrect names of the parents, or they may be at odds with other sources where the parents' names were given. So perhaps they were subsequently adopted and we didn't know about that. For the most part, I have accepted the date of birth as shown in the index is correct, but even that could be wrong. But in the absence of everything else, I've been inclined to accept date of birth and date of death per the index as being the correct date. And if other records show otherwise, look at them with a somewhat jaundiced eye, because it may well be, of course, the index is wrong, but you have to have, as I say, a starting point. And so for the moment, I'm assuming that at this point in time anyway, I'm assuming that the information as regards the actual date of birth, death or marriage is in fact correct there. In the case of other official records, for example, the Commonwealth Graves Commission websites, sometimes there again we're seeing information that doesn't tie up, say, with the likes of the Auckland Cenotaph database, and that in itself throws up a huge number of errors. Or perhaps the 28 Maori Battalion website, or the NZNS or WAAC website. So we're talking about the war nurses now. So disparities right across all of those sorts of sites as well. When it comes to cemetery records, again, sometimes they make more sense than other records, but sometimes they're wildly at odds. And we have even the likes of an incorrect date of birth or date of death recorded on a cemetery record. And of course, it follows then that the age is also incorrectly shown. And there are a myriad other areas where we can get incorrect information showing up. It might be in the likes of independently produced rolls or memorials, and our physical memorials are notorious for being inaccurate. The likes of prisoner of war lists. If one goes back to papers past, again, riddled with inconsistencies and sometimes outright errors. You know, I've just touched on a few of these. There are many, many more. I will just sort of perhaps wrap this up by saying that perhaps where one is most likely to find these errors cropping up, or most prolific, is in the area of genealogical record keeping. I'm still working through the ancestry.com site. I've also worked through some of the other genealogical records, and it just overwhelms me that some of the information is just so incorrect. One thing, I'll just give you an example of how you can get totally thrown. If you just look at the initial entries, and we're looking at Ancestry now, if we just look at the initial entry that may pop up for a particular person, and unless one actually burrows down to actually examine the family tree itself, you may see something pop up like perhaps a name, you know, Brian Adams, and the place of birth is Kaiku. And when you dig deeper, you find, in fact, no, it's not Kaiku. When you actually get to the family tree, it's Kaikohe. you may find something that looks like absolute gibberish, where someone has supposedly been born in some Indian sounding province in Alaska or something like that. And then you find, in fact, that it's something like Parapara Umu in our own country. So, you know, it really can be quite a headache. The I think I can probably wrap this up now by just saying, look, do understand one thing. Because of the many, many different sources that I have undertaken research, that I've used in my research, you need to understand that inevitably there will be errors showing up. Particularly when one gets into the area of other details. That's where it's most likely to show up, and occasionally in the likes of date of birth and death. But I would make the point, though, that there were two options I was faced with. It was either keep that information right out of the picture, or having reviewed all those different sources, come up with what I believe to be the most likely explanation. And I think giving an explanation, so in other words, if I put down husband of so-and-so and husband also of so-and-so, then I'm taking it that this person had two wives. There is always a possibility that one of those two entries, that we're actually talking about one and the same wife, because, you know, one may have had an initial that might have in fact been the middle name of the husband, and the other might have actually had that woman's Christian names. There's just no way of telling. So I would prefer to give too much information, some of which I know won't be correct, but by putting it in front of you, you will be able to look at this and see, okay, so here's so-and-so. He was born in Kaikoui. Okay, well, yeah, this guy, to my knowledge, he was born pretty close to there. Yep, date of birth is correct. That's fine. Okay, and we look at wives. Okay, we knew about one wife. We didn't know about the other. We had a slightly different variation in terms of the name of the wife, but Dale's come in with these different possibilities as regards the wife. So this then becomes a tool for you to actually further cement, if you like, your belief in what you found with the records I put in front of you. So I think it's good to have that information there rather than keep it right out and leave you guessing. But I just qualify the fact that some of the information, particularly when we're starting to look at other details, and of course this transposes through into the other roles as well. We're not just talking about the second NZEF role here, we're talking about other forces, we're talking about you know, the familial roles and all of the others. You just need to understand that I don't think by including this information that in any way that detracts from the value, the total value that these roles bring to you when it comes to your research. If we take the hardline view that a record should never ever be put up unless it is 100% correct, then I would like to just say to you this, that you would probably never ever have these roles in front of you now, because I can tell you now without a shadow of a doubt that the nominal roles, which form the basis for the Freedoms Corps roles as far as the Army is concerned, are riddled with errors. And so I've had to try and steer this middle path and pull all this information in from different sources and then come to a conclusion as to what I think is perhaps the most likely outcome in terms of whether it be date of birth, date of death, name of wife, name of parents, or whatever, and also give you other possibilities that might arise there as well, so that you become fully informed and you can accept or discard what you like. So on that note, I see we're coming up close to 15 minutes, and I hope you get some value out of this little exercise and understand that these roles, they are incredibly valuable. Really, really valuable, and there is nothing quite like them in New Zealand, I assure you of that. But also bear in mind, some of the information on them needs to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt, particularly when we get into some of the latter columns that you're going to see on those spreadsheets. So thank you for tuning in on this one, and I hope it's been of some value to you. We'll talk again soon. Bye.